because these are the people that are going to take power. They've got to start fighting.
If we win a few elections, we're still going to be losing unless we win the hearts and minds of our children. This is the battle. Hitler was right on one thing. He said, whoever has the youth has the future. Our children are being propagandized. If we win a few elections.
These are the people that are winning. Trump endorsed Illinois Republican Mary Miller, quoted Hitler on the eve of the January 6th riot. And I can tell you, the Republicans are openly going far right. The Republicans are openly going far right. Neo-Nazi Arthur Jones wins Republican nomination for Illinois congressional seat. This isn't the first time that this shit has happened. Yeah, we played her new quote a little bit earlier. So people often say, well, Mike, he can't do anything. Kirsten Sinema and Joe Manchin. First of all, what's the evidence that Kirsten Sinema is not pushable on this? Has anybody tried? Has anybody tried? As far as I'm concerned, they've just given up. The limits and power of using executive orders to protect abortion rights. President Biden is mulling over what he can do in response to a looming Supreme Court ruling overturning Roe v. Wade. So this happened. This is before the decision. What could he do? He could help the abortion pill be easier. They could protect people's sensitive health data so it can't be used by states. Providing reproductive health care on federal lands in all states with severe abortion restrictions could be on the table too. The Pentagon consider moving members of the military and their families to obtain an abortion and reproductive health care when they need it. And the Office of Personnel Management could ensure pay time off and reimbursement of costs for the procedure for federal employees who get an abortion. Well, it looks like the rally is over on Wall Street. Got another pretty bad day on Wall Street. Crypto, there was a nice little bounce earlier last week at the end of the week after that big drop, but it looks like it's back. North Carolina Dems have been going hard lately. A worker showed up at a friend's house pressuring her because she signed a Green Party petition. Remember that Democrats made an exception to the filibuster to raise the debt ceiling because their beloved stock market was jeopardized. But when it comes to women's rights and voting rights, they just don't care as much. That's a stone cold fact. Everything else is window dressing. I need to show you guys. I need to show you. Did I get? Okay, I didn't show you. Fuck. I didn't show you my. Kamala Harris is fucking useless. Is the short. I can't believe anybody thought that she was going to be anything but a complete loser. She couldn't campaign, but she was running. Every machine Democrat was like, Kamala Harris is so exciting. There was article after article after article. See, if you weren't here at the beginning of my streaming career back in August and September, October 2019, it was just me cackling my ass off at every single 538 article. I want to see if I could find you this, chat, just for giggles. I want to give you the 538 2020 primary draft. See if I can find this. This is incredible. September 19th, 20. Okay, that's not the one I was thinking of. What is the one? I want to show you their draft. Here we go. August 14th, 2019. They had videos. No, I want to show you the videos because they're so funny. Who they picked. Here we go. We're not going to watch the whole thing. I just want to show you. So 538 was basically the machine Democrats testing ground for like the candidates. It was fucking funny.
Welcome to the third installment of the 538 2020 Democratic primary draft. It's been a while since we last did one of these, not since January. We also recently had a debate on Tuesday, so it's time to take stock of where things are in the primary race. But before we do, let's mention who we all picked the last time we did this. It was January, remember? So I picked Elizabeth Warren.
Good pick.
Solid pick, I know. Nate, you picked Kamala Harris.
Guess who they don't pick?
Claire, you picked Beto O'Rourke. Ouch.
Yikes.
And Micah, you picked Amy Klobuchar.
They picked no one who won a state. None of the people they picked won a state.
So
Yikes.
that was all of our first picks. I feel pretty confident that I won that draft.
We were like trying to be contrarian, weren't we?
No, we were trying to pick
Yes,
who
we
we thought
were.
were actually going to
No,
win.
that's wrong. We were trying to be contrarian. I remember being very annoyed by the fact that like Biden and Bernie, who seemed like the obvious candidates.
I don't think you were
Pick
trying to be contrarian with Kamala Harris. Anyway.
No,
let's,
he
let's
wasn't. He's
do
just
this again.
coping. He
So we're
was
gonna figure
picking
out the
her
order with our
unironically
trusty-
because there was article after article at 538 being like, the elite Democratic Party really likes Kamala Harris.
The Treefort Music Festival hat back from when we were all in Idaho. If you were G,
Okay.
she will still be polling in the mid-20s to.
Did increase by a ton voting for her. Supposed to be one of the top.
You've kind of seemed worried about her.
It's worth saying they've made
Okay,
it
so he
clear at this
picked,
point that
he
they
picked
are.
Warren.
Biden is the co-front runner. Where's Warren? Biden and Warren are, we're calling them now co-front runners.
At no point. She picked Biden, which is good. So embarrassing, dude. All right. Kamala Harris, man.
Every statement that the Attorney General has made.
Can the administration expand abortion access or abortion services on federal land, meaning provide the access on federal land that might be in and around states that ban abortion?
I think that what is most important right now is that we ensure that the restrictions that the states are trying to put up that would prohibit a woman from exercising what we still maintain is her right, that we do everything we can to empower women to not only seek but to receive the care where it is available.
Is federal land one of those options?
I mean, it's not right now what we are discussing, but I will say that when I think about what is happening in terms of the states, we have to also recognize, Dana, that we are 130 odd days away from an election, which is going to include Senate races, right? Part of the issue here is that the court has acted, now Congress needs to act. But we, if you count the votes, don't appear to have the votes in the Senate. Well, there's an election happening in 130.
So who are the people that are against it? Who are the people who are for getting rid of the filibuster and who is against it? You won't tell us.
30 odd days. I'm taking, for example, thinking of a Senate race in Georgia or North Carolina. There's the Senate race coming up just in a couple weeks in Colorado. And we need to change the balance and have pro-choice legislators who have the power to make decisions about whether this constitutional right will be in law, right? We say codified, put it in law so that there will be no ambiguity about it.
And I want to ask you about that in 1 second.
Okay.
Just a couple of more questions, because what I'm hearing, and you probably are too, is what
Asked about abortions on federal land, Harris dismisses it, but her follow-up is even more troubling. She pivots directly to the November election, suggesting the Biden admin has no plans to act on the issue at all. There's no video, so take this for what it's worth, but in the same interview, Harris has apparently dodged a question on nuking the filibuster to protect abortion rights. On CNN, Dana Bash asked VP whether she would endorse a carve-out for a filibuster to codify national right to abortion, which House has passed. Bash, she wouldn't go there. Raise this question: is White House saying restoring Roe is possible only with 9 to 10 more pro-choice senators? Let's take a look at this. Let's look at the 2022 Senate elections. Where are we picking up 10 new seats, chat? Are we winning Idaho? Are we winning Utah? Are we winning North or South Dakota? Are we winning Iowa? Are we winning Nebraska? Or excuse me, Kansas? This is Nebraska. Kansas? Are we winning Oklahoma? Are we winning Arkansas? Are we winning Louisiana? Are we winning Missouri? Are we winning Indiana? Are we winning Kentucky? Are we winning South Carolina? Are we winning Alabama? Where the fuck are we winning new seats? In our wildest dreams, the wildest dreams, you win Florida, unlikely, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, Ohio, Wisconsin. I'll give you Iowa. Why not? That's 6. There's no possibility of getting to a filibuster-proof majority ever.
Check this out. On September 17th, 1787, a group of men in Philadelphia signed a document that set the course for American politics and still impacts daily life in the U.S. more than 230 years later. The U.S. Constitution. The first of its kind and the longest lasting constitution in the world. Even today, your health, your safety, even your perception of time, they're all impacted by this centuries-old document. It's perhaps the main reason the U.S. remains stuck on so many important issues. And while the longevity and near-holy reputation of the U.S. Constitution leads many to believe it either can't be changed or shouldn't be changed, it can be. So buckle your shoes and powder your wigs as we examine how the Constitution blocks the U.S. from becoming a thriving multiracial democracy and explore what it will take to change it.
The U.S. constitutional system establishes a fundamentally undemocratic order.
Do you ever look around and wonder how life in the U.S. got so desperate?
There's an 18th century constitution that is really mal-equipped to solve 21st century problems. What makes the Constitution profoundly flawed is that it doesn't reflect the current needs and values of this country and its people.
That's great, you say, but if the Constitution is so broken, show me a concrete example. These are three of the most fundamental anti-democratic pieces of the Constitution. The Electoral College makes it so the president can be elected without winning the popular vote. In fact, 2 of the last 4 presidents received fewer votes than their opponents. And the Senate? Well, the Senate's whole existence is based on circumventing democracy. It gives equal representation to each state regardless of population.
Wyoming has 500,000 people in it.
Back in Philly, this idea passed by only a 1-vote margin. So you could say the Senate was controversial even back then, and maybe not well thought out. See, the men in that room back in Philly could never have dreamed of the vast population differences that states would have in the 21st century. Today, 2 senators from states like Wyoming or South Dakota have the same power as the 2 senators from California. And a senator chosen by a few 100,000 voters can block the agenda of a president chosen by tens of millions. See where we're going with this? Supreme Court justices are nominated by the president, confirmed by the Senate, and then serve for life. Meaning the U.S. can have a president who didn't win a Democratic majority, nominating the most powerful judges in the country, who are then confirmed by senators whose power is constitutionally designed to undermine majority power. And it's these same judges who ultimately interpret the Constitution.
You can do a lot of violence with the text of the Constitution, given its history, given its modern evolution, and given the limited rights that people now enjoy under the Constitution because of its narrow interpretation by the Supreme Court.
So to recap, the men in that room back in Philly laid a path for a minority political party to sack the most powerful court in the country and wield generation-changing power. And they can do all of this without having to win a national popular vote or even respond to the actual demands of American voters.
All of this facilitates minority rule.
As bad as this sounds, the Constitution is doing exactly...
And the thing is, by the way, Chad, it'd be one thing if we had minority rule and it was working well. You know what I mean? Like, it'd be one thing if, well, you know, democracy's just incompetent. We need those wise, learned, anti-democratic forces to make our country run. It's not running well. It's actually why it's all fucked up. The reason why our culture can't respond to problems is because wealthy people could take advantage of these broken ass systems. Trying to expect a country of 315 million people to understand some arcane multi-level civics bullshit instead of just being able to say, these are the people I support. This is the party I support. These are the policies I support. Get it done. It's like, oh, you have to do that 10 times, and we have to hope that the small states line up in a proportional way with the bigger states. It's asinine. And the societies that are more democratic, that have proportional systems, that have parliamentary systems, or when people win elections, they have the mandate to do things, they operate better. They have a higher quality of life. Their institutions have more trust and less corruption. Anti-democratic equals corrupt.
What it was designed to do. Because at its core, the Constitution is all about power, dictating who gets to wield it and how. See, those men in Philly were wealthy, white, and deeply suspicious of the power everyday people might wield in elections. After all, workers and laborers vastly outnumbered them. So they wrote the Constitution in a way that consolidated power for men like them and away from true popular democratic rule. Here's a great example. He's rich and white and lost the popular vote by millions. Yet he was able to stack the court with conservative justices, thanks to a Republican-controlled Senate that represented a minority of voters.
The minoritarian dimensions of the constitutional system incentivizes one of the two major parties, the Republican Party, to see its strength as tied to these counter-majoritarian instruments, and to then view
14 months.
the actual emergence of a multiracial democracy in the U.S. as an almost existential threat.
Which is why Republicans continue blocking legislation aimed at increasing access to the ballot, and why the U.S. faces one democratic crisis after another. For example, if abortion access were put to a popular vote in the U.S., it would win by a landslide. Same goes for background checks on guns, voting rights, environmental protections, yeeting our current healthcare system into the sun, and a host of other modern issues. Yet these things remain stalled and Americans' lives remain desperate. And it all goes back to what?
The Constitution rooted in slavery, rooted in exclusion, excluding women, excluding anyone who did not own property, excluding anyone who was not a man.
This is real. Rarely, if ever, have women or people of color had any meaningful say in how the Constitution is written or fixed. It's a document that at its core is written by white men who wanted to build themselves a country on land violently taken from Native people.
The U.S. Constitution is not just pro-slavery, it also was built through a project of settler colonialism.
So if Americans wanted to redraft their Constitution to make it more representative of today's values and demographics, what would they have to do?
As good citizens, we must be quick to use the tools our Constitution gives us and repair any cracks that may appear.
Thomas Jefferson, seen here on the easily forgotten $2 bill, is one of the most famous founding fathers. He believed the Constitution would last less than 2 decades because each generation should interpret the Constitution for itself. He actually wrote, "No society can make a perpetual constitution or even a perpetual law." Today, that same Constitution theoretically can be changed. It's just very difficult.
Article 5, which provides for amending the Constitution, shows that the men who wrote it expected it to change.
The Constitution absolutely can.
The level of consensus you need to change the Constitution is absurd. And they just pulled it out of their ass.
Be formally changed.
There are about 200 constitutions around the world. The U.S. is the oldest. It's probably the most difficult to amend.
This difficulty is a big reason why life in the U.S. can feel like running on a hamster wheel, facing the same battles around guns and abortion and countless other issues, and not getting anywhere. Meanwhile, other countries are making real progress.
You don't look to the U.S. as a model of what to put.
Nobody looks at the U.S. as a model.
You look to other countries that protect newer forms of rights, especially social and economic rights, like the right to health care. That's in constitutions around the world today. The right to a job. That's in constitutions around the world today. The right to a clean environment. That's in constitutions of the world today. None of those three appears in the text of the U.S. Constitution.
Think of the U.S. Constitution debuting in 1787 like a new car rolling out of the dealership. At the time, no one had ever seen anything like it. It was shiny and full of promise. But it was kind of a lemon. Almost immediately, it needed massive repairs to keep it running. Over the years, it's needed maintenance, like an amendment here and there to keep the country going, and some major repairs during Reconstruction. But overall, not many repairs have been possible.
There have been over 12,000 proposals to amend the U.S. Constitution in Congress, and of those, only 27 have made it through the labyrinth of constitutional amendment.
And remember, 10 of those amendments were immediate. So in the 230 years or so since it was written, the Constitution has only been amended 17 times.
Congress approved the 19th Amendment, which provided for the voting rights of women.
The last time the Constitution was amended was more than 30 years ago, in 1992. And that was kind of a quirk. Before that, it had last been amended when the 26th Amendment expanded voting rights.
That amendment's it's some dumb shit about the compensation of Congress people. It doesn't fucking matter. Like, you can't raise your pay without an election in between. Who cares? Dumbass amendment, too.
In the 1970s to all Americans over 18, which means it's been more than 50 years since a meaningful addition has been made to the Constitution. You could say the U.S. is part of the check engine light club, based solely on numbers. Not to mention Thomas Jefferson, you could argue the Constitution is way past due for some repairs.
The average constitution in the world is 19 years old, and they're replaced every 20 years or so. Not this one.
Some would say scrap it and just get a new car, because fixing this car is extremely difficult.
Article 5 of the U.S. Constitution tells us there are two ways to amend the Constitution. First, you can call a constitutional convention.
I think the main problem we have is the states are fucking stupid. The states are fucking stupid. Wyoming, North Dakota, South Dakota, most of the heartland states shouldn't exist. They don't represent a coherent polity. They're not self-sufficient. They don't have sufficient population. They should be combined. We should really be knocking down the number of states we have to something that's more reasonable. And we shouldn't have a Senate. So that's, the states should be administrative regions, I guess, but largely not making policy. That's the thing that's insane. There's no reason that they should be making policy.
Through the very same thing that led to the creation of the U.S. Constitution in 1787. That's never been tried before. The other way to amend the Constitution requires 2/3 of the Congress to approve an amendment.
No, just throw the Constitution in the trash.
And then 38 out of 50 states have to approve that amendment. That's a high bar. It's a very, very high bar.
So, considering the U.S. Constitution can change, but is mad difficult to change, what should Americans do? Well, listening to American news would have you thinking that Americans are hyper-partisan. But if you look at the numbers, that simply isn't the case. Americans generally...
That's not how you measure whether it's partisanship or not. Asking people... this is what I disagree with this video about. Asking people their position on an issue doesn't tell you anything. In fact, I would call it irrelevant. I would actually call it irrelevant. It's only useful for a rhetorical argument. Like, wow, so many people agree with me about X, Y, and Z. I have democratic legitimacy. That's all bullshit, right? I do it too, but it's bullshit. It's a bullshit argument. Because if you say you agree with Bernie Sanders on everything and then you go vote for Trump, which is millions of people, by the way, it doesn't matter that you think you support X, Y, and Z. Those women that were like, oh, I think abortion should be between a man and their doctor, and they're wearing Make America Great Again shirts, their private opinion doesn't fucking matter. It's their political act. And the country is extremely divided politically. But this is like a no-no topic, I guess.
They agree on big issues. So now that we understand that the Constitution intentionally creates a power imbalance, what would it take for Americans to make meaningful changes to their Constitution?
The recipe to amend the U.S. Constitution requires more than just looking at the text of Article 5. You need a social movement that builds up from below, or you need a charismatic leader that leads from above.
The main changes that need to be pursued now are really changes that would enhance the power that the most marginalized have in this society. In order for the Constitution to change today, the country needs a mass movement on behalf of insurgent democracy.
The world doesn't look to the US Constitution as a model anymore. It's old, it's outdated, it's ancient. It actually holds back the possibilities for humanity.
Nobody
to have a constitution
nobody
that looks
nobody
like
would
the
cite the US Constitution for
Limited
anything.
protections.
Get the
for
fuck
rights
out of
and
here.
freedoms.
No shot. Are you watching the stream unsubbed? You're making income inequality worse. You are doing anti-praxis. We are the only Twitch stream that will not accept scam advertisers, and I will never fuck you over by selling you crap.